the blizzard hit faster than they could respond. Temperatures plummeted below -40. Visibility dropped to 0. And then the engines failed. Stranded with only the emergency supplies, they knew their time was limited. One wrong move and you could be frozen in the Arctic wasteland forever. So they did the only thing they could. They walked towards the last known coordinates, towards the ghost station of Kivituk, hoping to find shelter or a way to contact the outside world. What they didn't know was they were being watched, monitored by something from beyond the veil of snow and ice. Something that thrived in the extreme cold and fed on human despair. Something that had driven others to madness before and would do the same to them. Or perhaps it simply wanted them to come to the station, to the place where the Whispers lived. The storm raged for days. When it finally subsided, the team found themselves at the edge of a frozen wasteland, battered but alive. Then they saw it in the distance, the abandoned research outpost, a lonely sentinel against the endless white. Relief washed over them as they stumbled closer. Perhaps they'd be saved after all. Perhaps they could escape the Whispers. But there was no escaping what awaited them inside. The station was a maze of corridors and chambers, each more desolate than the last. The walls were covered with graffiti, many of them frantic, as if whoever made them were trapped in a desperate struggle against the cold and the dark. They found caches of food, untouched, as if abandoned in haste. No one had lived here for decades, yet it felt like someone was watching them, sensing their presence in the echoing halls. Then they heard it, a whisper, barely audible over the wind, but it called to them nonetheless. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. A disembodied voice speaking in a language that chilled them to the bones. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, as if a door to the outside had been left open in the blizzard. The hair on the back of their necks stood on end. Their instruments began to pick up erratic readings, as if something was interfering with them. Was this the source of the mysterious radio signals? Had they found something they weren't supposed to? Or were they merely trespassing on something ancient? Something that had lain dormant beneath the ice for eons? Fear gnawed at their resolve. What had brought them here? The promise of discovery now seemed foolish, even reckless. They had come seeking answers, but now they had only questions. Questions whispered in the dead of night by a voice that echoed across the ages. But they were determined to find those answers, whatever the cost. Daylight revealed the truth. Someone had been living here. Signs of a recent fire, charred wood and melted snow, indicated a desperate attempt to keep warm. Had the previous occupants gone mad? Were they still here, hiding in the shadows, watching them? More whispers seemed to slither around them, growing louder, more insistent. And then they saw it, a message scrawled on a piece of metal, half buried in the snow. A plea for help, a warning, or perhaps a confession. Whatever it was, it chilled them to the core. Suddenly, the reality of their situation crashed down on them. They were not alone. They were trapped in a nightmare from which there was no waking. Surrounded by the whispers, they realized the true meaning of the Inuit warning. They had become what the locals feared most, The ones who came to the frozen wastelands and never returned, taken by the land and lost to the ice. They tried to leave, but the whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if urging them to stay. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they knew they had to make a stand. They gathered whatever supplies they could, preparing to hunker down for the night. But even as they did, the whispers seemed to seep into their very bones. They huddled together for warmth, their fear palpable in the darkness. They knew that whatever lurked in the shadows was patient, relentless, and it waited for them to weaken so it could claim them as its own. What do you do when the things you aren't supposed to see begin to see you? Do you run? Do you hide? Do you confront? Or do you wait for the inevitable? This is the story of those who waited. This is a tale of terror from the eternal ice. It all began in early January, when the transport ship arrived. The temperature was already at minus 42 degrees Celsius. The wind was brutal enough to rip through bone in a matter of seconds, and the snowstorm was so thick that visibility was barely a few feet beyond the snowmobiles. The research station looked like a corpse buried under frost. Its windows were cracked, the metal walls were rusted, and the snow piled up halfway up the doors. And as they pushed open the door and stepped inside, a smell hit them. Not the smell of decay, but something older, like damp stone and copper. The 6 members of the wintering team were experienced professionals, but the isolation of the outpost unnerved them. The power was dead, the heaters were frozen, and they were about to spend the next 2 months here. But what bothered them the most was the state of the building. The interior was in perfect condition. There was no sign of the struggle or the desperate attempt to escape. The previous crew had simply vanished. The team set up their equipment, their movements echoing in the vast emptiness. There was Dr. Hannah Lee, the lead scientist, calm and rational, determined to make this stay productive. Mark Reyes, the audio tech, young and ambitious, eager to prove himself. Sarah Keane, the environmental expert, already uneasy. Tyler Brooks, the cameraman, tasked with documenting everything, and James Hollow, ex-military, the muscle of the group, the one who noticed the tracks first. Yes, tracks in the snow leading away from the station. Human footprints, deep and unbroken. But there was one problem. They started at the door, not ended, started. Like someone or something had stepped out of the building into the raging blizzard. They asked each other what it could mean and immediately dismissed it. They were probably from the old crew. Maybe it was a trick of the snow, or maybe it was nothing. They wouldn't know until spring, so they decided to focus on more pressing matters. That night, as the wind howled and the darkness thickened, the radios buzzed with static. Mark tried to tune the frequency, thinking it was just interference. But between the hiss and the crackle, they heard something else. Breathing. It was wet, slow, and close, followed by a voice. It wasn't male. It wasn't female. It wasn't human. It whispered a single word, cold, and then silence. No one spoke. Tyler checked the tapes, but there was nothing. Sarah insisted it was a feedback loop. Hannah told them it was altitude sickness. Only James remained silent, his gaze distant. He was the only one who hadn't dismissed the tracks that day. He knew. He just knew that whatever had ventured out into the storm that day hadn't come back. And now it was trying to tell them something. But what days turned into weeks, and the blizzard raged on, cutting them off from the outside world. The silence was deafening. Then the whispers began. At first they were faint, like the wind playing tricks, but then they grew louder, more insistent. Cold, cold, cold. It whispered day and night. Sometimes the voices would come from above, sometimes below, sometimes all around. They tried to ignore it, to reason with it, but the whispers persisted. And as the temperature dropped and the darkness deepened, they started to feel the cold seeping into their bones, numbing their skin. Was it the altitude sickness taking hold? Was it the isolation driving them insane? Or was it the ice that remembered? One day they found something that changed everything. What they found was a diary, its pages filled with frantic scribblings, detailing the descent into madness, the feeling of being watched, the whispers in the ice. The last entry read, "They're here. The ice remembers. We can't escape. It's too late, so cold." The diary belonged to the previous crew. They weren't crazy. They had experienced the same horror they were enduring. But what was it? James, always the pragmatist, suggested they leave. They should pack up and go. Now, the storm had stopped. The tracks in the snow were visible again. And for a moment, the team considered their options. They could stay and face the unknown, or they could leave and face the blizzard. Either way, the choice was theirs. They packed their equipment, each movement heavy with unspoken fear. The team stepped out into the blinding whiteness, the diary clutched tightly in Hannah's hands. The wind snatched the pages from her grasp and scattered them like fallen leaves. And as they turned to leave, they saw it. On one of the walls, someone had carved a phrase in deep, frantic slashes. "The ice remembers." It was then they realized they weren't just battling the cold, they were battling the past. Whatever had happened here before, it was happening again. And this time, they were trapped in its icy grip. Hello, I'm here with a new story for you. As always, this is brought to you with the help of my patrons. If you'd like to help me keep the lights on and the coffee brewing here at the studio, you can find the link to that down in the description. And now, without further ado, let's begin. The first night was the worst. Not because of the blizzard raging outside or the temperature plummeting to unimaginable lows. It was because of the silence, the endless, heavy silence of the vast, empty ice. "You don't understand how empty it is out there," James said. He just stared out the window. His eyes were fixed on the frozen darkness. Out there, in the distance, something was standing still. Too still. Bit human, but its proportions were wrong. Longer, narrower, almost stretched, like it was made of wax. When the others looked, it was gone. James swore it hadn't moved. It had just disappeared. And so, the first night ended in silence. But something had shifted. The ice around them wasn't just snow and water. It was listening. By the second day, the station began to feel less like a research site and more like a mausoleum. They weren't just dealing with cold anymore. The cold had become something else. aware. It clung to their skin, even when they stood near the portable heaters. It whispered through the ventilation shafts. Mark was the first to say it out loud. "I think there's something in here with us," he said. The others laughed it off, but no one truly found it funny. Then came the journals. Tyler discovered them behind a false panel in the main lab. Dozens of leather-bound notebooks, all from the original 1982 crew. The entries started off normal weather readings, wildlife observations, the occasional equipment malfunction. But the tone shifted quickly. "The ice talks at night," Sarah wrote. "It speaks in a language of cracking and groaning. We must not open the tunnel. We must not dig further." And in the last journal, dated just days before the station was abandoned, one sentence was repeated over and over again. "We fed it by mistake. Now it waits." That same afternoon, they found the tunnel. A steel hatch hidden beneath the snow, just outside the eastern wall. Frozen shut, almost as if it were deliberately buried. James forced it open with a blowtorch. Inside was a narrow staircase carved directly into the ice. No lights, no rails, just a spiral descending into darkness. Against every instinct, they went down. The air grew thicker, colder, not just by degrees, but by weight. It felt strange, like it was pressing inward on their lungs. The staircase ended at a room, perfectly square, entirely carved from the ice, and eerily smooth, as if no hand had ever touched it. In the center lay a pile of bones, animal and human mixed together. Some were old, some were new, all were picked clean. And on the far wall, scrawled in what looked like frozen blood, "You found I..." And that's the end of part 1. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to leave a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm, which helps me make more of these for you. And as always, thank you for listening. Until next time, take care. Welcome to the next episode of our horror anthology series. Back at the surface, the team argued. Some wanted to leave. Others wanted to stay and investigate further. But that night, the decision was made for them. Sarah went missing. No struggle, no blood, no signs of forced entry. Her bed was still warm. Her boots were gone. One camera caught a flicker of movement at 3:12 a.m. A dark shape passing by her room, followed by the sound of the door creaking open. And then silence. They searched until dawn, screaming her name into the wind. But all they found were her footprints leading out into the snow, just like the ones before. And they ended in the middle of nowhere, just stopped as if she had vanished into the sky. The whispers started after that. At first, they came through the radio, soft murmurs in unknown dialects. Then, in their dreams, Tyler woke up with frostbite on his fingertips, even though he'd been sleeping inside a heated room. James reported seeing shadows standing beside his bed, long-limbed, faceless silhouettes that melted away when the lights flickered on. Hannah tried to stay rational. She locked herself in the lab, reviewing journal pages and footage. But the more she read, the more fractured she became. One night, she covered the walls with lines from the old journals using charcoal. "It comes when you forget its name," The land remembers. The land remembers. The land remembers. That same night, she clawed open her own arms with a scalpel, screaming that it was trying to get inside her. They sedated her, but she kept whispering in her sleep, "Don't look at the ice. That's where it hides." Meanwhile, Marquince, bright and talkative, stopped speaking altogether. He sat near the window every night, watching the horizon, waiting. When Tyler asked him what he was looking for, he finally spoke. "She's still out there, but she's not Sarah anymore." Mark was right. On the fourth night, the storm cleared. For the first time, visibility returned, and standing just beyond the ridge was Sarah. No coat, no shoes, no frostbite. Just standing still, smiling, waving. Tyler and James ran out to her, screaming, crying. But as they approached, she didn't move, and when they got within 20 feet, she vanished, just gone. Only her footprints remained, and at the end of them, carved into the ice, a single word: welcome. They dragged Tyler back, half frozen and sobbing. James didn't say a word. He just stared at the ridge where Sarah had stood, not with grief, but with fear, because something was wrong with the snow there. It wasn't falling, it was rising. Something had shifted in the camp. That night, a blizzard raged. Hannah awoke to the sound of screams in the night, the same ones she'd heard on the radio. Then the wind shifted and the sound of crunching snow, footsteps near the tent. Someone or something heavy was padding closer. She watched in a daze as a shape rose up outside the tent, backlit by the aurora. It was tall and corpulent, like a snowman, but not a snowman. Its eyes burned an unnatural yellow in the darkness, and it beckoned with a finger. Hannah screamed and scrambled back. She pressed her face against the cool glass of the tent, peering out at the approaching monster. A single word formed on its lips: "Come." Then it was gone. The next morning, the team found strange markings carved into the ice around the tent. The edges of the glyphs seemed to writhe and pulse, and as the sun rose higher, they saw that the monster had left its own footprints in the snow, big, round, and human. They found James near the edge of the ridge where Sarah had disappeared. His eyes were wide and staring, in his hand a fistful of snow. When they asked him what he was doing, he looked down at his hands in confusion and whispered, "She called me. I had to go to her." Tyler grabbed his arm, desperation edging his voice. "You don't understand. She's not Sarah. She never came back. The thing out there, it took her, and now it wants us." James looked up at him, eyes empty. "She wouldn't let me help her, but this time I will. We have to go back." The station that once felt too big now felt suffocating. The walls were closing in, the shadows stretching longer than they should. The wind no longer howled outside. It breathed. It was alive. James was the first to snap. He packed a backpack and left. He never came back. The video he left behind showed him walking, something following him, a shape just behind his left shoulder. The camera shakes as he runs, the breathing growing louder. Then a voice. It's not her. It looks like her, but it's not. It's wearing her. Then the static returned. The generator failed. The heaters died. Temperatures plummeted. Hannah started burning the journals, the pages filled with Mark's frantic scribblings about the creature in the ice. Mark began sleepwalking to the hatch. When Tyler asked what he was doing, Mark whispered, "It's almost time. We're going home." Then the knocking started, not on the doors, but from beneath the floor. 3 taps, then silence. 3 more, then footsteps. Inside the walls, Hannah and Tyler descended again. The ladder was too long. This time, it reached a chamber of ice, the air growing colder. At the far end, Mark stood transfixed, arms outstretched. The land is hungry. The offering is made. Behind him, the ice cracked. Tyler ran. Hannah never came back. Weeks later, the rescue team arrived. They found Tyler curled in a corner, silent, empty-eyed. The hatch opened. The last journal slammed shut. The last entry read, "We weren't the first. We won't be the last. It doesn't hate us. It feeds on us." Only one video clip was recovered. No sound, just a black skeletal hand reaching up through the ice. Some stories end with a scream. This one ends with silence and the cold. The outpost has since been sealed, but the signals, they never stopped. Every few months, new bursts appear, always from the same coordinates, always the same message. It's still hungry. And if you felt the chill tonight, if you heard the whispers too, then you're already part of the story. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my channel. It's me. You probably know me from another platform where I share paranormal videos and investigations, but I wanted to have my own space to share all aspects of the paranormal. Everything from ghost stories to strange encounters, strange places, maybe even a monster or two. And that's why I started this channel. So let's talk about tonight's story. The whole premise for this video came to me in a dream. I don't get a lot of dreams, and when I do, they're never very clear. But this one, it stuck out to me. I woke up and I wrote down every detail that I remembered. I knew right away that it would make a great video, but I didn't expect it to turn into this. Usually I write all my own scripts, but this one, it practically wrote itself. And I figured that if I had a dream about this story, maybe others might too. Maybe you were one of them. Some of you may have seen my other video. This is why you should never go into the woods that I posted a while ago. That video took off and now has over 2 million views. So when I finished writing this one, I thought, why not? I recorded it and put it up. To be honest, I was just trying to replicate the style of that video, and it worked. I wasn't expecting this kind of reaction, but I'm glad that you guys seem to enjoy it. Some people have asked if I'll do another video like this, and I definitely will. I just need a good idea. I love to hear from you guys. So if you have any ideas, leave them in the comments below. Who knows, maybe your idea will become a story, and then you'll be part of the story. And if you felt the chill tonight, if you heard the whispers too, then you're already part of the story. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button below to help with the algorithm. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can be notified when I post new videos. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and remember, some things were never meant to be unearthed, and some doors, they should never be opened.